When her millionaire husband called her useless and left her with just $10, Amelia thought her story had ended. But destiny had other plans, and her comeback would cost him everything he thought he owned. The Cole mansion glittered like a palace, crystal chandeliers, white marble floors, walls lined with imported art. Yet, under that cold perfection, silence reigned. It wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the kind that echoed loneliness in every step. Amelia Torres Cole stood by the window in her champagne-colored gown, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the city skyline. It was her husband's charity gala night, another event where she'd smile for cameras, play the role of the perfect wife, and be forgotten the moment the flashes dimmed. In the reflection, she caught a glimpse of herself. Perfect posture, perfect makeup, and eyes that had forgotten what joy looked like. A soft voice from the hallway called out, "Mrs. Cole, the car is ready." She nodded, but her heart wasn't. The ballroom buzzed with laughter and champagne. Ethan Cole stood at the center, tall, commanding, wearing the confidence of a man who believed the world owed him applause. Investors surrounded him like bees to honey. "Hey there, my amazing family. Welcome back. Get comfortable, grab a drink, and settle in, because today's story is going to pull at your heart in all the right ways." If you're excited already, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I've got another powerful story waiting for you, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Amelia took her seat beside him, smiling politely at people who didn't see her. She designed the event's theme, floral arrangements, lighting, even the menu, but Ethan never mentioned her contributions. When the host announced, "A special thanks to the Cole family for tonight's generosity," Ethan raised his glass. "Family?" he chuckled. "Well, just me really. Amelia doesn't do much except look pretty." The table erupted in forced laughter. Something inside Amelia cracked, not loudly, but enough to echo in her soul. She looked at him, searching for the man she once loved. But Ethan's eyes were flat, focused on his reflection in his wine glass. She stood up, quiet but firm. "Excuse me." "Sit down, Amelia," Ethan said under his breath, jaw tight. Her voice trembled, but she didn't. "No, I think I've been sitting for too long." She walked out of that ballroom into the cold New York air, heels clicking like a heartbeat speeding up. For the first time in years, she didn't care about appearances. Her phone buzzed Ethan. She ignored it. By the time she returned home, the housekeeper met her at the door, eyes downcast. "Mr. Cole asked me to give you this." She handed Amelia a white envelope. Inside, divorce papers and a check. $10. There was no letter, no explanation, just silence. Amelia stared at the check, her breath catching in her throat. The number mocked her. $10, after 10 years of marriage, after everything she gave up. Her wedding ring slipped off her finger and clinked against the marble floor. The sound was small, but it thundered through the empty house. She whispered to herself, "You're free now, Amelia." But the tears that followed didn't feel like freedom. At the same time, Ethan sat in his office downtown, overlooking Manhattan's glowing skyline. His assistant poured him a drink. "She signed?" the assistant asked. "She will," Ethan said, swirling the amber liquid. "She wasn't built for my world. It's better this way." But when the room fell silent, the confidence in his tone wavered. He picked up a photo from the corner of his desk. Amelia laughing on a beach years ago, hair tangled by wind. He hesitated before flipping it face down. He told himself it was mercy, freeing her from his coldness. But deep down, he knew he'd chosen ego over love. Back in the city, Amelia packed a single suitcase. Her designer clothes felt heavy with memories she no longer wanted. At dawn, She walked out of the mansion and didn't look back. She took the subway for the first time in years, the rumble beneath her feet grounding her to reality. She watched people, workers, students, dreamers, each one carrying invisible battles. She pulled the check from her coat pocket. $10. The irony made her laugh. A raw, broken laugh that startled the woman sitting beside her. She stepped off at 42nd Street, standing amid the morning rush. For the first time, there were no drivers, no schedules, no one waiting for her. Just her and $10 to her name. Her reflection in a cafe window caught her attention. Tired eyes, red lipstick smeared, but still, something alive flickered. "Maybe this is where I start over," she whispered. As she pushed open the cafe door, a thought crossed her mind, one that she couldn't shake. If love was supposed to build you, why did it leave me in ruins? The warmth of the cafe wrapped around her like a blanket. She sat at a corner table, ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a small black coffee, and watched steam rise from the cup. That's when she realized something quietly powerful. She wasn't useless. She was untested. Her heart still hurt, but beneath the pain was a spark. Small, trembling, but real. If the person you trusted most told you that you were worthless, what's the first thing you do to prove them wrong? Comment below. I want to hear your thoughts. The cafe was small, brick walls lined with old photos, the smell of espresso thick in the air. It felt alive, human, nothing like the lifeless luxury Amelia had left behind. She sat at the corner table, nursing her black coffee, counting the crumpled bills and coins she had left. $10. Her entire future reduced to 2 digits. A soft voice interrupted her spiral. "You look like someone who's lost more than just money." Amelia looked up. A woman in her 60s stood by the counter, warm eyes, gray curls tucked into a bun, flour dusting her apron. Her name tag read Lucia. Amelia tried to smile. "You could say that." Lucia slid a plate with a small piece of bread across the counter. "On the house. You look like you need it more than I do." Amelia hesitated, pride wrestling with hunger. Then she nodded, accepting. "Thank you." Lucia tilted her head. "Thank me when you come back and buy the whole loaf one day." It was said lightly, but it landed deep, like a challenge. Amelia spent hours there, staring at the bread and thinking about how her life had flipped overnight. The sound of steaming milk and soft laughter from the baristas filled the air, a background score to her quiet breakdown. Lucia eventually sat across from her, wiping her hands on a towel. "Want to talk about it?" she asked. Amelia exhaled. "My husband left me yesterday, called me useless, took everything." Lucia didn't gasp. She just nodded, the kind of nod that said, "I've seen pain before." "And what did you do after that?" Lucia asked. Amelia blinked. "What could I do? I came here. I don't even know why." Lucia smiled softly. "Sometimes your heart brings you where your head refuses to go." She reached into her apron and pulled out a napkin. On it, she wrote something. "When you hit bottom, don't dig, build." Lucia pushed it toward her. "You've got 2 hands, a brain, and $10. That's more than most people start with." For the first time, Amelia's eyes didn't fill with tears. They filled with something else. Fire. By evening, Amelia helped Lucia clean the cafe. It wasn't planned. She just couldn't sit still anymore. The smell of coffee beans, the clatter of cups, the rhythm of work. It made her feel useful again. When she was done, Lucia handed her a paper cup filled with hot chocolate. "Payment," she said with a wink. Amelia laughed, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in months. As the cafe lights dimmed, Lucia said, "You're welcome here anytime. But if you really want to thank me, promise me something." "What?" Amelia asked. Promise you'll turn that $10 into something he'll never forget. That night, Amelia sat on a park bench with her small notebook, one she'd carried since college. It had sketches of dresses, jewelry, and product ideas she'd dreamed of creating before she married Ethan. She ran her hand over the faded pencil lines. Each one felt like a heartbeat she'd silenced for years. She whispered to the night, "Maybe it's time to start listening again." She opened a blank page and began to draw. A bracelet design with the words, "Useless no more," engraved on the inside. The idea hit her like lightning. Not revenge. Reinvention. She could sell designs online. Start small. Use the $10 for materials. The more she sketched, the more her fear faded. In its place grew clarity. Purpose. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his penthouse, scrolling through social media. His PR manager showed him headlines about his latest acquisition, but his mind drifted elsewhere. He scrolled to Amelia's page, empty. No updates, no pictures, just silence. For a brief second, he wondered if she was okay. Then he shut the thought down. She'll find someone to take care of her. She always does. But the words didn't comfort him this time. He poured himself another drink, staring at the skyline that once made him feel powerful. Now it felt like a cage. The next morning, Amelia returned to the cafe. Lucia grinned. "I was hoping you would." Amelia handed her the $10 bill. "I need some materials. Wire, beads, maybe a few charms. Can you help me find where to buy them cheap?" Lucia's eyes lit up. "Ah, so the builder's awake." They spent the day walking through thrift shops and art supply stores. Lucia bargained like a pro, teaching Amelia how to stretch every cent. By sundown, Amelia held a small paper bag with everything she needed. $10 gone, but transformed into possibility. When Lucia dropped her off at the subway, she said, "Don't waste time hating the man who broke you. Spend that time becoming the woman he'll never forget." Amelia smiled, the city lights glinting in her tear-filled eyes. "That's exactly what I plan to do." That night, in a tiny rented room above a laundromat, Amelia set her supplies on a table. The room smelled of detergent and rain. The hum of washing machines below became her soundtrack. Her fingers trembled as she twisted wire and beads together. By midnight, she held her first creation. A simple bracelet, imperfect but beautiful. She tied it around her wrist and whispered, "This is where I begin." The fear hadn't disappeared, but it no longer ruled her. For the first time since her marriage ended, she felt alive. Do you believe that pain can be the best teacher? Or do some heartbreaks just break us for good? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. The next week blurred into long, sleepless nights. Amelia worked out of her tiny room, hands sore from bending wire and threading beads. Her first 10 bracelets sat neatly on the table, each one unique, each one carrying a word she wished someone had once said to her. Strong. Worthy. Enough. She set up an online shop on a second-hand laptop Lucia lent her, naming it Rewoven. The name came from a line she scribbled in her journal. Even broken threads can make something beautiful. But days passed. No orders. Her excitement dulled into silence, the kind of silence she knew too well. Amelia spent her mornings handing out flyers at local boutiques, trying to convince store owners to stock her handmade jewelry. Most smiled politely, then refused. "Sweetheart," one woman said, inspecting a bracelet through her glasses, "these are nice, but people want brand names. You should try Etsy." "I already did," Amelia replied softly. "Then maybe it's just not the right time." That phrase followed her everywhere, not the right time. Every no felt like Ethan's voice all over again, echoing in her head. Useless, unqualified, out of your depth. One rainy afternoon, standing outside a boutique that had just rejected her again, she looked at her reflection in the glass. Wet hair clinging to her cheeks, eyes rimmed red, hands trembling. She whispered to herself, maybe he was right. Her phone buzzed, a number she hadn't seen in months. Ethan. She froze. Curiosity won. Hello. His voice was steady, confident. I just wanted to make sure you're managing. I heard you moved out. Amelia laughed quietly. Managing is one word for it. I could still, he started. No. She cut in, sharper than she meant to. You already gave me what you thought I was worth. Silence. Heavy, suffocating. Then he sighed. You were never built for struggle, Amelia. Don't ruin yourself trying to prove a point. She hung up. Her hands shook, but not from weakness, from anger. That night, she worked until her fingers bled. Weeks went by. Her savings dwindled. Lucia helped where she could. Free meals, late-night encouragements. But Amelia's hope thinned. One evening, as she scrolled through her shop's dashboard, a single notification blinked. One new order. She gasped. Someone from Seattle had ordered 2 bracelets, worthy and fearless. She worked all night packaging them beautifully, writing a thank you note that read, from one woman rebuilding herself to another, may you never forget your worth. But days later, an email arrived, order canceled. The buyer claimed the bracelets looked cheap. The sting was unbearable. Amelia pressed her forehead against the desk, tears spilling silently. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't keep losing. The next morning, Lucia found her sitting in the cafe, hollow-eyed, staring at her phone. Bad night? Lucia asked. Bad month, Amelia replied. I've tried everything. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Lucia sat across from her, folding her arms. You remind me of myself at 35. Amelia looked up. I opened this cafe after my husband died, Lucia said. Everyone told me I was crazy. I had no money, no degree, just a recipe book and a dream. You know what I learned? What? Lucia leaned forward. You don't wait for the world to see your value. You show them until they can't ignore it. Amelia stared at her, tears threatening again. And what if I fail? Lucia smiled. Then you start again. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the path to it. Something in Lucia's voice steadied her. That night, Amelia sat by the window of her small room, city lights flickering below. She reopened her laptop, staring at the empty shop page. Then she made a decision. She filmed a short video, raw, unpolished, her face bare, eyes still swollen from crying. My name is Amelia, she began softly. A year ago, I had everything money could buy. Then I lost it all and was told I was useless. I started this small brand, Rewoven, because I believe even broken things can become beautiful again. These aren't just bracelets. They're reminders that we can start over, no matter who says we can't. She posted it online and went to bed. The next morning, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Thousands of views, hundreds of comments, women sharing their own stories of loss, betrayal, and rebuilding. Orders started pouring in, small at first, then dozens at a time. By nightfall, she was sold out. Amelia stared at the screen, her hands trembling. She wasn't useless. She wasn't broken. She was becoming. She sent a silent thank you to Lucia, and maybe a quiet one to Ethan, for lighting the fire he never saw coming. Have you ever had someone's doubt become your greatest motivation? Share your story, it might just inspire someone else watching this. The next week blurred into long, sleepless nights. Amelia worked out of her tiny room, hands sore from bending wire and threading beads. Her first 10 bracelets sat neatly on the table, each one unique, each one carrying a word she wished someone had once said to her: strong, worthy, enough. She set up an online shop on a second-hand laptop Lucia lent her, naming it Rewoven. The name came from a line she scribbled in her journal. Even broken threads can make something beautiful. But days passed. No orders. Her excitement dulled into silence, the kind of silence she knew too well. Amelia spent her mornings handing out flyers at local boutiques, trying to convince store owners to stock her handmade jewelry. Most smiled politely, then refused. "Sweetheart," one woman said, inspecting a bracelet through her glasses, "these are nice, but people want brand names. You should try Etsy." "I already did," Amelia replied softly. "Then maybe it's just not the right time." That phrase followed her everywhere, not the right time. Every no felt like Ethan's voice all over again, echoing in her head. Useless, unqualified, out of your depth. One rainy afternoon, standing outside a boutique that had just rejected her again, she looked at her reflection in the glass. Wet hair clinging to her cheeks, eyes rimmed red, hands trembling. She whispered to herself, maybe he was right. Her phone buzzed, a number she hadn't seen in months. "Ethan." She froze. Curiosity won. "Hello." His voice was steady, confident. "I just wanted to make sure you're managing. I heard you moved out." Amelia laughed quietly. "Managing is one word for it." "I could still," he started. "No," she cut in, sharper than she meant to. "You already gave me what you thought I was worth." Silence. Heavy, suffocating. Then he sighed. "You were never built for struggle, Amelia. Don't ruin yourself trying to prove a point." She hung up. Her hands shook, but not from weakness, from anger. That night, she worked until her fingers bled. Weeks went by. Her savings dwindled. Lucia helped where she could. Free meals, late-night encouragements. But Amelia's hope thinned. One evening, as she scrolled through her shop's dashboard, a single notification blinked. One new order. She gasped. Someone from Seattle had ordered 2 bracelets, worthy and fearless. She worked all night packaging them beautifully, writing a thank you note that read, "From one woman rebuilding herself to another, may you never forget your worth." But days later, an email arrived, order canceled. The buyer claimed the bracelets looked cheap. The sting was unbearable. Amelia pressed her forehead against the desk, tears spilling silently. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't keep losing." The next morning, Lucia found her sitting in the cafe, hollow-eyed, staring at her phone. "Bad night?" Lucia asked. "Bad month," Amelia replied. "I've tried everything. Maybe I'm not cut out for this." Lucia sat across from her, folding her arms. "You remind me of myself at 35. Amelia looked up. "I opened this cafe after my husband died," Lucia said. "Everyone told me I was crazy. I had no money, no degree, just a recipe book and a dream. You know what I learned?" "What?" Lucia leaned forward. "You don't wait for the world to see your value. You show them until they can't ignore it." Amelia stared at her, tears threatening again. "And what if I fail?" Lucia smiled. "Then you start again. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the path to it." Something in Lucia's voice steadied her. That night, Amelia sat by the window of her small room, city lights flickering below. She reopened her laptop, staring at the empty shop page. Then she made a decision. She filmed a short video, raw, unpolished, her face bare, eyes still swollen from crying. "My name is Amelia," she began softly. "A year ago I had everything money could buy. Then I lost it all and was told I was useless. I started this small brand, rewoven, because I believe even broken things can become beautiful again. These aren't just bracelets. They're reminders that we can start over, no matter who says we can't. She posted it online and went to bed. The next morning, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Thousands of views, hundreds of comments, women sharing their own stories of loss, betrayal, and rebuilding. Orders started pouring in, small at first, then dozens at a time. By nightfall, she was sold out. Amelia stared at the screen, her hands trembling. She wasn't useless. She wasn't broken. She was becoming. She sent a silent thank you to Lucia, and maybe a quiet one to Ethan, for lighting the fire he never saw coming. Have you ever had someone's doubt become your greatest motivation? Share your story, it might just inspire someone else watching this. 2 months later, Rewoven was everywhere. Influencers wore Amelia's bracelets. Magazines called it the brand built from heartbreak. Orders flooded her inbox faster than she could fill them. Lucia's cafe had turned into her makeshift studio. Beads, tools, and packages covering every surface. Amelia was no longer the woman who'd left a mansion in tears. She was building something. Every bracelet that shipped out carried a piece of her heart, and a silent message to Ethan Cole. You were wrong. At Cole Industries, Ethan's marketing team was in a frenzy. Sales were dropping, competitors gaining ground. During a meeting, a young consultant mentioned a new viral jewelry brand. It's everywhere, she said, pulling up Rewoven's site. Authentic, emotional, empowering. We could collaborate for our next women's empowerment campaign. Ethan barely looked up. Jewelry isn't our demographic. But as she scrolled, something on the screen made him freeze. The logo, simple, elegant, featured a tiny thread looped into an infinity symbol. He knew that symbol. Amelia used to doodle it in her notebooks when she was bored. Send me the details, he said quietly. A week later, Amelia received an email from a major corporate PR agency. We'd like to partner with Rewoven for Cole Industries Women in Business Initiative. Your story aligns perfectly with the campaign. Her breath caught. Cole Industries. Of all the companies in the world, Lucia noticed her frozen at the counter. What's wrong, mi amor? Amelia handed her the phone. Lucia's eyes widened. That's your ex's company, isn't it? Amelia nodded. He doesn't know. It's just through an agency. Lucia smirked. Then make him find out the hard way. The partnership was confirmed. Amelia spent nights perfecting her presentation, trembling at the thought of facing the ghost she'd buried. On the morning of the meeting, she wore one of her own designs, a gold-threaded bracelet engraved with Reborn. The conference room gleamed with glass walls and tension. She set up her materials, heart racing. Then the door opened. Ethan walked in. Their eyes met. For a second, the world stopped. His expression froze, recognition flickering into disbelief. Amelia? She smiled faintly, steadying her voice. Good morning, Mr. Cole. Thank you for inviting me. The other executives exchanged awkward glances. Ethan tried to mask his shock, but his hand tightened on the folder. Amelia began her pitch with calm precision. Rewoven is more than jewelry. It's a movement. It's proof that you can start from nothing and build something that matters. Her voice didn't waver once. Slides changed. Numbers flashed, sales, engagement, viral reach. Ethan watched her, not as the man who once called her useless, but as a businessman realizing he had underestimated a force of nature. When the presentation ended, the room erupted in applause. One executive whispered, "This is genius." Ethan cleared his throat. "Could you stay after the meeting, Amelia? Just for a moment." She hesitated, then nodded. When the room emptied, silence filled the air again. the same kind of silence that used to separate them in their mansion. Ethan finally spoke. "I didn't know it was you." Amelia crossed her arms. "Does it matter?" He searched her face, guilt flickering. "You look different." "I am different," she said. "You taught me what I was worth. It just wasn't what you thought." He flinched. "Amelia, I don't." She cut in softly. "You don't owe me explanations. I don't need them anymore." He nodded slowly, regret heavy in his eyes. "Still, I'm proud of what you've built." That surprised her. "Proud?" Ethan smiled weakly. "I used to think power was money. Now I see its resilience. You have more of it than I ever did." The honesty disarmed her. For a flicker of a moment, she saw the man she fell in love with years ago, before pride consumed him. But she caught herself. "Thank you, Mr. Cole. If we're done, I have other clients to meet." She turned and walked out, her heels echoing against marble, the sound of quiet victory. After she left, Ethan sat alone in the empty conference room. The scent of her perfume lingered faintly in the air. He opened her presentation folder again, reading her company's motto, "Built from brokenness." He whispered, "You really did it." A rare, unguarded smile crossed his face, equal parts pride and pain. Back at Lucia's cafe, Amelia dropped into a chair, exhausted but exhilarated. Lucia grinned. "So, did you see him?" Amelia laughed softly. "Oh, I saw him. He looked like a man who just realized he bet on the wrong person." Lucia chuckled. "Good. Now use that energy to make your next move." Amelia stared at her phone, the Cole Industries partnership email glowing on the screen. "I think I already have. Could you stay calm if fate suddenly put you face to face with the person who broke you? Or would you walk away? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious what you would do." 2 weeks after the meeting, the Rewoven X Cole Industries campaign launched and exploded. Billboards, magazine spreads, talk shows. Amelia's face was everywhere. The tagline read, "Rewoven. Strength is the new luxury." Everywhere Ethan went, he saw her. Smiling, confident, radiant. The world called her the Phoenix of fashion. But behind that smile, Amelia carried the memories like old scars. Reminders of the nights she'd cried in the dark, praying for a reason to keep breathing. Now she was that reason. Ethan sat in his penthouse, watching one of her interviews on television. A reporter asked, "What inspired Rewoven?" Amelia's answer was steady. "Pain. I wanted to prove that even when someone calls you worthless, you can rebuild your worth with your own hands." Ethan's throat tightened. He muted the TV and leaned back, memories flooding in. He remembered their early years. Small apartment, shared dreams, cheap wine and laughter. He remembered how Amelia used to stay up late sketching designs while he worked on his startup. And then he remembered the day it all started to die. 3 years before the divorce. Ethan's business was collapsing. Investors were pulling out, bills piling up. Amelia had tried to help, suggesting creative solutions, offering to sell her designs to support them. But Ethan's pride couldn't stand the idea of needing help. "You don't understand business, Amelia," he snapped one night. She'd stayed silent, swallowing her hurt. Weeks later, her father died suddenly. She'd begged Ethan to take a few days off to attend the funeral with her. He refused. "If I leave now, we'll lose everything." She went alone. When she returned, he didn't ask how it went. He was too busy rebuilding his empire, without realizing he'd already destroyed his marriage. Lucia found Amelia one evening sitting in the cafe, scrolling through messages on her phone. Her PR team had just confirmed an interview with Forbes. "You okay?" Lucia asked. Amelia hesitated. "He's everywhere again, in my life, my business, my headlines. I keep wondering if he even knows why I left. Lucia handed her a cup of coffee. Does it matter? Maybe not, Amelia said softly. But closure isn't about him. It's about me finally saying what I never got to say. She opened her notebook and began to write. A letter to Ethan. Not to send, but to release. You once told me I was useless, but you never saw the woman who stayed up with you through sleepless nights, who believed in your dream when you didn't. You broke me to feel powerful. But I've learned that real power isn't control. It's creation. And I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I do. She closed the notebook, exhaling deeply. Lucia smiled. Now that's healing me more. At Cole Industries, Ethan's assistant dropped a folder on his desk. Thought you'd want to see this, she said. Inside were old archives from their first office, receipts, early design sketches, and Amelia's forgotten portfolio. He flipped through them, stopping at one page labeled Amelia's Ideas, Branding Concepts. The handwriting was hers. Underneath, small notes about company logos, slogans, even investor pitch visuals. He froze. Half the ideas matched what his company still used today. His chest tightened. He had called her useless, but she had helped him build the empire he stood on. Days later, Ethan showed up at Lucia's cafe unannounced. The bell above the door jingled as Amelia looked up from her laptop. Ethan? He took a hesitant step forward. I needed to talk to you. Lucia raised an eyebrow, wiping her hands on a towel. You have 5 minutes, businessman. Ethan gave a nervous laugh, then turned back to Amelia. I found your old sketches, from my company's early days. Amelia blinked. You kept those? I didn't even know I had them, he said quietly. You were helping me all along, and I was too blind to see it. Amelia stared at him, heart pounding. Why are you telling me this now? Because I need you to know I was wrong. About everything. You weren't useless, Amelia. You were the only thing that ever made me better. Lucia, pretending to clean nearby, muttered, About time somebody said it. Amelia stood up, the weight of years between them filling the space. Ethan, I don't hate you, she said softly. I used to. I wanted to see you fall. But now, I just don't need you to define me anymore. He looked at her, eyes glistening. I know, but seeing you succeed, it's like watching everything I destroyed come back stronger. Amelia smiled gently. Then maybe destruction was part of the plan. They stood in silence for a long time. No apologies, no promises. Just two souls who finally understood what went wrong. Ethan finally said, If you ever want to work together again. She shook her head, smiling. I already am. Just not for you this time. That night, Amelia walked home through the city streets, neon lights reflecting off puddles. The world around her buzzed with life. She touched the bracelet on her wrist, reborn. This time, her tears weren't from pain. They were from peace. She whispered to herself, You did it. You finally let go. Have you ever forgiven someone? Not for them, but to free yourself? What did that feel like? Share your thoughts below. Someone out there needs to hear your story. Weeks passed after their confrontation. Cole Industries' collaboration with Rewoven was still ongoing, and fate had more irony to deliver. Amelia and Ethan had to attend joint meetings for the campaign's expansion. It wasn't easy at first. Their conversations were clipped, professional, full of careful pauses. But underneath the surface tension, something unspoken hummed, familiarity, understanding, a ghost of what they once were. During one meeting, Ethan leaned over her presentation notes. You always had a good eye for design, he said quietly. Amelia didn't look up. You just never noticed. He gave a small, rueful smile. I'm noticing now. Later that evening, they both attended a charity event, the same kind of gathering that once destroyed them. This time, Amelia stood on stage as the keynote speaker. She spoke about rebuilding after loss, about turning pain into purpose. Her voice was calm but powerful. When she finished, the audience gave her a standing ovation. Ethan watched from the front row, something stirring in him that had long been dormant. Admiration, but deeper this time. After the event, he approached her quietly. "You were incredible tonight." Amelia smiled. "Thank you. I never thought I'd see you at one of these again." He shrugged. "Guess I had to see what success looks like up close." She laughed softly, not bitterly this time. Surprised them both. The night ended with a sudden downpour. The two of them waited outside the venue, rain hammering against the pavement. Ethan offered his jacket. She hesitated. "Old habits die hard," she said. He smiled. "Then let's start new ones." She accepted, pulling the jacket over her shoulders. It smelled faintly of cedar and memory. For a long moment, they stood silently under the awning, the world blurred by rain. "You know," Ethan said softly, "I used to think loving someone meant providing everything for them. Turns out it means letting them be everything they are." Amelia looked up at him, eyes softer than she intended. "You're not who you used to be." "Neither are you," he said. They both smiled, rain catching in their lashes. Back at the cafe a few days later, Lucia noticed Amelia humming while packing orders. "Someone looks lighter," Lucia teased. Amelia blushed. "It's not like that. We're just working together." Lucia raised an eyebrow. "Working, HM? That glow doesn't come from spreadsheets." Amelia laughed, shaking her head. "Lucia, he hurt me. I can't just forget that." Lucia leaned closer. "Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means you're strong enough to look at him and not feel small anymore." That struck deep. A week later, Amelia and Ethan found themselves alone in the coal industry's rooftop garden after a long meeting. The city skyline stretched before them, endless lights, endless possibilities. Ethan leaned against the railing. "I used to stand here after you left," he said quietly. "Everyone thought I was celebrating my success, but I was just trying not to feel how empty it was." Amelia stayed silent, letting him speak. "I was cruel because I was scared," he continued. "Scared of failing, scared of not being enough. And when I took it out on you, I convinced myself it was control. It wasn't. It was weakness." She turned to face him. "Ethan, I'm not the woman who needs your apology anymore, but I'll accept it for the man you're trying to be." He smiled, a small, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "That's the kindest thing anyone's said to me in years." They began spending more time together. Meetings that turned into coffee runs, late-night brainstorming sessions filled with quiet laughter. One night, Ethan showed her a clumsy drawing he'd made for a potential ad layout. "Don't laugh," he warned. She immediately laughed. "That's something." He grinned. "You can't fire me, though. I'm technically the client." She shook her head, chuckling. "You're still insufferably confident. And you're still terrifyingly honest," he replied. It was easy again, familiar but new. One evening, Amelia stayed late at the office, working on campaign edits. Ethan returned after hours to grab a file and found her asleep on the couch, laptop open beside her. For a moment he just stood there, watching her breathe, the peace on her face, the strength she carried now. He whispered to himself, "You deserved better than me back then." Quietly, he draped a blanket over her shoulders and turned off the light before leaving. When Amelia woke up, she noticed the blanket and the faint scent of cedar. Her lips curved into a smile she didn't quite understand. Lucia noticed it before Amelia did. You're falling for him again, aren't you? Amelia hesitated. I don't know. It's different this time. Lucia smiled knowingly. It's not love reborn. It's love rewritten. You've both changed the story. Amelia thought about that all night. Maybe Lucia was right. Maybe some broken things didn't need to be thrown away. They just needed to be remade. Do you believe two people can fall in love again after breaking each other's hearts? Drop your answer below. I want to see how many of you think love deserves a second chance. 6 months into the Rewoven X Cole Industries partnership, both brands were preparing for their biggest event yet, a global fashion and empowerment summit in San Francisco. Amelia's brand had hit new heights. Investors were lining up, media outlets calling her a modern-day miracle. Ethan had quietly ensured Cole Industries supported her growth at every turn, though he never took credit. They were closer now than either admitted. Late nights at the office had become their routine. Laughter, brainstorming, and that dangerous quiet where words weren't needed. But success has a way of attracting shadows. 3 days before the summit, Amelia received an anonymous email titled, "You should see what your partner's been hiding." Attached was a confidential file, Cole Industries' internal report, showing that the company's PR head, Damian Trent, had been using Rewoven's name to push fake charity donations. Millions had been laundered through the campaign. Her heart pounded. The document bore Cole's logo and Ethan's digital signature. She felt sick. Lucia found her sitting motionless at the cafe, phone in hand. "Mi amor, what's wrong?" Amelia showed her the screen. "It's his company, Lucia. His name's on it." Lucia frowned. "Are you sure it's not a setup?" Amelia's voice cracked. "I don't know what to believe anymore." That evening, Amelia stormed into Ethan's office, slamming the printed files onto his desk. "What is this?" Ethan looked up, confused. "What?" He scanned the pages, his eyes widening. "Tell me it's not true," she demanded, voice trembling. He looked at her, guilt and shock blending into one. "I didn't know about this. Damian must have." "Don't," she cut in sharply. "I've heard that tone before. It's the same one you used every time you lied to me." "Amelia, please. You told me you'd changed," she snapped, tears glistening. "I believed you. And now I'm finding out you've been using my company to cover your corruption." He stood, desperate. "Amelia, I swear on everything. I had no idea. Damian runs the PR side. I'll fix it." Her voice broke. "You can't fix what's broken again." She turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her. News spread like wildfire. Within hours, media headlines screamed scandal. Rewoven linked to fraud under Cole Industries banner. Orders plummeted. Investors withdrew. Amelia's inbox overflowed with cancellations and hate mail. Lucia stayed by her side as she watched everything crumble. "I worked so hard for this," Amelia whispered, voice hollow. "I built this from $10. Lucia squeezed her hand. "You'll rebuild again." But this time, Amelia didn't answer. At Cole Industries, chaos erupted. Ethan confronted Damian in a rage. "You used her name for this?" he bellowed. Damian smirked. "It was business. The Rewoven brand made people trust us. You signed the documents. Remember?" Ethan grabbed him by the collar. "You forged that signature." Damian's smirk faltered. "Prove it." Ethan shoved him away. "Oh, I will." 2 days later, Amelia prepared to face the media. Her lawyers advised silence, but she refused. She stood in front of the cameras, trembling but composed. "I started Rewoven with $10 and a broken heart," she began. "And I built it with truth. I had no part in this fraud, and I will not let anyone use my name to harm others." Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Her voice grew stronger. "I've lost everything before," she said. "If I have to lose it again to protect what's right, then so be it." The video went viral within hours. Millions rallied behind her, but still the scandal lingered. That night, Ethan called a press conference of his own. He stood before the cameras, eyes tired but resolute. "I take full responsibility for the misconduct under Coal Industries' PR department. Amelia Torres had no involvement. She was used and I failed to protect her. Effective immediately, I am stepping down as CEO." The reporters exploded with questions, but he simply said, "This is the least I can do for the woman I wronged twice." Amelia watched the broadcast alone, tears sliding down her cheeks. Lucia entered quietly, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. "He did it, didn't he?" Amelia nodded. "He gave up everything." Lucia smiled sadly. "Sometimes love isn't about staying together. It's about doing right by someone when it costs you most." Amelia stared at the TV, Ethan's face frozen on the screen. Maybe he finally understands what love really means. That night, Amelia sat at her work table again, surrounded by silence. She picked up one of her bracelets, the word fearless engraved on it, and clenched it in her palm until it hurt. She whispered through tears, "You did this once. You can do it again." But this time, the words didn't sound like a promise. They sounded like a plea. Her tears hit the metal, shining under the lamplight. "Would you forgive someone who destroyed your trust twice, even if they sacrificed everything to make it right? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious what your heart says, not your pride." A week after Ethan's resignation, New York moved on, but Amelia hadn't. The noise of scandal faded, yet inside her, everything still echoed. She avoided news feeds, interviews, even friends. Rewoven had survived the crisis. Orders were trickling back, but her heart felt like glass. Lucia found her one morning, staring at a bracelet on the work table. "Still thinking about him?" Amelia nodded faintly. "He gave up everything, Lucia. I don't know if it was guilt or love." Lucia poured coffee, set it down gently. "Maybe both. Sometimes guilt is love's ugly twin." Amelia smiled sadly. "And what do I do with that?" Lucia shrugged. "You decide whether you're done writing this story or just between chapters." Across the city, Ethan's penthouse was half empty. Reporters camped outside. Shareholders turned their backs. He spent his days volunteering at small business workshops, helping young entrepreneurs avoid his mistakes. It didn't fix the guilt, but it gave the guilt a purpose. At night, he watched old photos of Amelia. Her laugh, the paint stains on her hands, the way she looked at the world like it was still worth saving. He whispered to the silence, "You were always the brave one." Then he opened his laptop and typed an email he'd rewritten 100 times. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He asked for 5 minutes to return something that belonged to her. Amelia saw his name in her inbox. Her pulse jumped. Subject: "One last thing." Message: "Meet me at the old pier tomorrow evening. No press, no business, just truth." She read it 3 times, heart arguing with mind. Lucia noticed. "You're going." "I shouldn't." "But you will." Lucia smiled. "Because unfinished hearts never stay quiet." Dusk painted the sky gold and violet. The river shimmered beneath a fading sun. Ethan stood waiting, holding a small velvet box in his hands. Not jewelry, something heavier. When Amelia arrived, the wind lifted her hair, and for a second, they were back to the first time they'd met. 2 dreamers who still believed forever was possible. She stopped a few feet away. "You look human." He chuckled softly. "First time in a while. What did you want to show me?" He opened the box. Inside was the $10 check he'd given her the day of their divorce. Crumpled, yellowed, but framed in glass. "I found this in your old drawer," he said. "I kept it. I don't even know why. Maybe to remind myself what I took from you. I wanted you to have it back." Amelia's breath caught. "Why now?" "Because it's not a debt anymore," he said. "It's proof. Proof that money doesn't define worth, and that I finally learned what you were trying to teach me." They sat on a bench facing the water, the city glowing behind them. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," Amelia said quietly. "I don't expect you to," Ethan replied. "I just needed you to know that you changed me. Losing you was the price of my ego. And for what it's worth, I'd pay it again if it meant you became who you are now." Tears burned her eyes. "You don't get to decide my pain was worth it." "I know." He turned to her. "But I hope someday you can look at me and not see the man who broke you, just the one who finally saw you." The honesty disarmed her. The anger she'd clung to didn't fit anymore. It had nowhere left to live. They sat in silence, the waves whispering. Amelia finally said, "You know, when you called me useless, I believed you. For years, I built everything to prove you wrong. But somewhere along the way, I stopped needing to. I built it for me." Ethan smiled faintly. "That's the version of you I fell for all over again." She met his eyes. "Don't say that unless you mean it." "I've never meant anything more." The wind picked up, scattering leaves across the pier. Amelia stood, staring at the skyline. The same city that had once broken her, now shining like a promise. "I don't know if I can go back," she said. "Then don't," he replied. "Go forward. And if there's room for me in that future, I'll be grateful. If not, I'll still be proud of you." She studied him for a long moment. There was no manipulation, no arrogance. Just a man stripped of everything but sincerity. She took a slow breath. "Maybe we can start with friendship." Ethan's eyes softened. "I'll take it." She took the framed check from him, running her fingers over the glass. Then she opened her purse and pulled out one of her bracelets. Gold, simple, engraved with rewoven. "Trade?" she asked. He nodded, exchanging symbols. "That $10 built my life," she said. "Now maybe it can rebuild a little faith." He smiled. "Deal." They stood in silence as the sun slipped below the horizon, two silhouettes outlined by fading light, no longer bound by bitterness, but by understanding. Back at her apartment later that night, Amelia hung the framed check above her desk. Beneath it, she placed a new motto for her company's next campaign. "Worth can't be taken, it can only be forgotten, and it can always be remembered again." She stared at it, smiling through tears. Maybe forgiveness wasn't weakness. Maybe it was the bravest thing she'd ever done. Would you give a second chance to someone who finally learned how to love you right? Or would you close that chapter forever? Comment below. Your answer might help someone make their own choice. Exactly a year after the scandal, the world finally knew the truth. Coal Industries' internal audit proved Ethan's innocence and exposed Damien's forgery. The company recovered slowly, and so did its former CEO. But the biggest story of that year wasn't Coal's redemption. It was rewoven. Valued now at $300 million, it had become a global symbol of resilience, a brand that inspired millions to rebuild their worth. And on a bright spring morning, Amelia Torres stood in front of hundreds at her company's first headquarters launch. The words, "Rewoven," built from brokenness, gleaming above her in gold. The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. But Amelia's eyes searched for one face, and found him standing quietly in the back. Ethan. She took a deep breath, steadying her emotions. "When I started Rewoven," she began, "I had $10 and a heart full of anger. I wanted to prove someone wrong. But along the way, I realized the person I needed to prove wrong wasn't him. It was the version of myself who believed she couldn't rise again. The audience listened in pin-drop silence. I learned something powerful this year, she continued. We think strength is about never breaking, but real strength is about breaking, healing, and choosing to love again anyway. Her voice caught for a second as her gaze met Ethan's. And to the people who hurt us, sometimes they're just the mirror we need to see what we're truly made of. The crowd stood, clapping, cheering. Flashbulbs burst like fireworks. But in that moment, Amelia didn't feel like a businesswoman. She felt like a survivor who had finally come home to herself. After the event, she stepped outside, away from the cameras. The city air smelled like rain and lilacs. Ethan approached, holding 2 cups of coffee. I wasn't sure if you'd want to see me, he said softly. I wasn't sure either, she admitted. But I'm glad you came. He handed her a cup. Lucia told me your favorite. She smiled. You went to the cafe? He nodded. She still calls me businessman. They both laughed, the kind of laugh that carries healing in it. Ethan took a deep breath. I have a proposal, not business. She raised an eyebrow. Go on. I'm starting a foundation to help women entrepreneurs who've been through what you went through. I'd like Rewoven to be the face of it. But only if you're willing. Amelia smiled softly. That's actually beautiful. He shrugged. It's something you taught me. The best way to make peace with your past is to build something better for someone else. She looked at him for a long time. You've really changed. He smiled faintly. You did that. The rain began to fall lightly, the same way it had the night they shared his jacket months ago. Amelia stepped closer, coffee warming her hands. You know, the old me would have never believed in second chances. And the new you? He asked. She met his eyes. She knows that sometimes love isn't about forgetting what broke you. It's about finding someone who helps you see it differently. Ethan's voice was quiet. Then maybe this time, I'll spend my life trying to see it right. The air between them was electric and still, a pause the universe seemed to hold its breath for. Then, slowly, she reached for his hand. No grand declarations. No promises of forever. Just 2 people choosing to begin again, wiser, softer, unafraid. Months later, in her office, Amelia added one final piece to her wall of memories. Framed side by side were 2 items. The original $10 check, faded but sacred. A new rewoven bracelet, engraved with a single word, home. Lucia walked in, smiling. Looks perfect. Amelia nodded. It is. Lucia grinned. And Mr. Businessman? Amelia chuckled. He's downstairs helping the interns with the foundation launch. Can you believe that? Lucia winked. A man rewoven by love. Amelia smiled, gazing at the wall. By truth, she corrected gently. Love just helped stitch it back together. Later that night, the office lights dimmed. Ethan entered quietly, setting down 2 coffees again, their little ritual. She looked up from her desk. Long day. Worth it, he said. They stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the city lights. Below them, the world buzzed with life. People chasing dreams, losing and finding themselves, breaking and rebuilding. Amelia leaned against the railing. Do you ever think about how it all started? $10 and heartbreak. Ethan smiled. Best investment I ever made. She laughed, nudging him. You didn't make it. You threw it away. He turned to her, his expression soft. And you turned it into everything I never knew I needed. He reached for her hand, fingers intertwining effortlessly. The city lights flickered in their eyes, not as reminders of what they'd lost, but reflections of everything they'd become. No grand proposal, no dramatic ending. Just peace, mutual respect, real love, quiet, grounded, earned. Amelia whispered, "We really did it, didn't we?" Ethan smiled. "You did. I'm just lucky to be here to witness it." The wind carried her laughter into the night. The sound was light, free. The sound of a woman who had finally learned that love, like life, is most beautiful when it's rebuilt from brokenness. What does true success mean to you? Revenge, redemption, or peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your words might be the reminder someone else needs tonight.
Thank you so much for watching till the very end. I hope you truly felt the story as much as I did telling it. We've got plenty more powerful stories waiting for you, so don't stop here. Just click on the video showing on your screen right now and keep the journey going. I'll see you in the next one.